The show where anything goes. Motivation, mindset, recovery, philosophy, and life. We become who we are through what we experience. We all have a story, and this is My Backstory with Josh Boyer.
All right, here we go. I don't know what episode this is because I've lost track, to be honest with you. So I think it's probably episode number 29, maybe. I'm not sure. But anyway, it's the My Backstory podcast. And I'm here with Becky Johnson, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm here in Salt Lake City, and a little backstory of how I met Becky. I just met her actually today for the first time. But Adam, who I just did a podcast with and who owns Star Spangled Supplements, was like, hey man, I have a person I'd like you to meet. And I think she could be a benefit to you. And so he shared with me that, you do some medium work and energy healing and this and that. And I'm all about that because like I shared with you earlier, like I don't take any pain pills, and I really wanted to get away from that in my life, and try to find like real true healing where I'm like really dealing with some of the issues that I have internally that are causing some of these other symptoms, whether it be anxiety or pain or whatever. Because I really do feel that a lot of my back issues, I think some of that was emotional pain that I was holding there in my lumbar spine. And I've heard that from other people, like, you hold on to a lot of emotions in your lower back. I was like, oh, interesting. Yeah. It's interesting that all of my surgeries have been there, as pent up guy, and no shit, I have all these back surgeries. But anyway, I want to hear your story, like where you grew up, how you got into doing medium work. Did it start with religion? Did it go into being, how did it come about? Because I don't think people wake up and be like, I'm going to be a medium, and do energy healing, So it's fascinating to me because it's new to me and it's foreign kind of because I've never really been exposed to it. So I'm going to hand it over to you and you can share your story.
Oh, cool. Okay. So I grew up in Ohio. Nice. In a small town, Wapakoneta, Ohio. Home of Neil Armstrong.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
So I grew up there on a dairy farm, and I just loved it because I love nature. I love animals. I had a hard time eating the animals, though. I had a really hard time with that because they were my friends.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
I just saw them as pets. So I kind of started realizing a lot about food and nutrition and things from the time I was small. Yeah. How things affected me and how they affected other people, I think, as well. Yeah. Yes, from a long time, from when I was tiny, I could, hear things, see things sometimes. And I really thought everybody was the same way that I was. Right. But I think it kind of runs in my family anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
Who else in your family was had the same thing?
I think most of us, almost all of us can see or feel things or know things. We're all very intuitive. My parents, siblings, all of us. Wow. But I grew up with a Christian Science grandmother.
Interesting.
Yeah, and she was very much into healing. And I watched her and her mother help people. And I thought it was fascinating that people could be sick one minute and well shortly after.
Where do you think that was coming from, like that healing?
I'm not quite sure at that time. I believe now that there is energy out there. And I think sometimes when we focus our energy, whether it's in ourselves or other people are helping us, it can create miracles. Yeah. I do. I believe that. Yeah. Quantum physics, those kind of things, right? So anyway, so I grew up there. My family did convert to another religion. It didn't quite suit me. Yeah. And I kind of fought for a really long time.
Yeah. Like a lot of us do. Yeah, for sure.
So I realized, when I was about 20, I had an experience where I kind of crossed over to the other side. And at this point, I really knew a lot, or I felt that I knew a lot about the world and people and their brains and how they thought. And I realized it really wasn't being taught out there anywhere. Right. And I decided to come back from that experience and help people.
What was that experience, if you don't mind sharing? What happened?
I had a little near-death experience.
Wow.
Yeah. When I was giving birth to my third child.
Wow.
So it was quite life-changing, of course, for me, because I saw things that I kind of wondered about, and it didn't quite fit along with mainstream religion anywhere.
Right.
And so I kind of tried to fit in for years, kind of went through a lot of depression, didn't want to be here. I wanted to go back. I didn't talk about it to anyone, because anytime I would even start bringing up tiny pieces, they would shut me down. So I just didn't talk about it to anyone.
It must have been like torture, though, holding that inside and not being able to share it.
Yeah, it was weird because I wanted to practice it. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to see what all I could do with that and how it could change my life. But it obviously did not fit in with the lifestyle that I was living in at the time.
Could you explain what that feeling that you felt when you were on the other side, what was that?
I felt absolute completion, if you will, because it was all based on knowledge. I know I've talked to and I've read other people's near-death experiences, and they were more of the warm and fuzzy, which is great. I had that feeling too.
Right.
But that's not what changed me or awoke me. It was more of the knowing that there's reasons why everything's happening. Yeah. It's not just like, oh, you're down here trying your hardest, or, I actually don't necessarily believe in religion at all anymore. Yeah. Yeah. I'm very spiritual, but I am not a religious person. And I was shown why that religious God was so important to certain groups of people and why it needed to kind of be that way, but it wasn't the ultimate truth.
Can you explain that just a little bit in more detail? The reason I'm asking you to is because there are a lot of people, myself being one of them, that grew up like in the church, grew up with a organized religion, with rules and regulations, if you will, and understanding of right from wrong based on what you're being taught. And the way I saw it for myself was that there was the Word of God, the Bible, apparently, and then there was an interpretation of that, right?
Many.
Many interpretations of it. Yeah. And so you're being basically fed whatever your minister, pastor, priest, whatever you like to call it, whatever their interpretation of that word is. And so if you could, because for me, I switched over to being like, I'm not part of an organized religion.
Yeah.
I went through an anger phase where I was angry about it, where I was like, I felt cheated. I felt like, like there was so much more out there that I could have known about at an earlier age, but my parents, for whatever reason, they found this religion and they believed in it, and so that we were like engulfed in it. And so I was angry about it. But now I'm of the mindset of finding my own path and my own way, and not judging others for being where they are, and trying to explain like to someone like, I'm spiritual. I believe that there is a higher power. Call that energy, call that universe, call it God, call it whatever you will. I just don't ascribe to a organized religion. So if you could explain for like in your terms what that means.
I'll just share a little bit of like basically what I saw over there and what I actually share with people in my sessions with them. So basically I saw that we already were intelligent, highly intelligent beings. We just didn't know how to apply that, if you will. And we needed kind of a place to practice what benefits there were to being as intelligent as we were.
Right.
So you can call that gods, you can call it creators, whatever you want to call it, but we were highly intelligent beings. And so what I saw was that we come to these places to basically experience all things. So I do believe in past lives.
Yeah.
And I saw that people will go through all the different archetypes, personality traits, all those different things, and basically experience what they're not, to finally be able to understand and utilize what they are and who they are.
Yeah.
So the way that we do that is we give away our power, if you will, to 3 different groups. And the main one is family. And the next 2 are government and religion.
Right.
Because as children, we look to our families for our identity, for our purpose, for our value, if we're safe, if we're okay, if we're acceptable, lovable, all those things. And sometimes we're born into families that tell us those things. But most people, whether their parents are even saying that or not, they don't accept it. Yeah. Right? If you have children, you know that, right? Absolutely. Some kids, you can say you love them and they go, yeah. And the other ones are like, I hate you.
Oh, totally. I'm going through that right now with my 4-year-old. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? I don't understand it. It's a part of you is like wounded by it, because it's like, I just want to love you, kid, and he's like so independent and he's like, putting his middle finger up and it's like, all right, kid, like, I don't know, you'll come around.
Wait till he's 15, right?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be worse, I'm sure.
That's right. Yeah. But that's part of it, is that we come down with these different personality traits to experience different things.
Yeah.
And when you start studying the archetypes as well, you start realizing that when you're in certain archetypes, almost everyone behaves and speaks the same way, right?
Yep.
So it's kind of part of profiling. You meet people and you can kind of see things and you know things about them, whether you've experienced or you've watched other people experience, you kind of know their story.
Yeah.
The details are different, but the basis of that is usually very similar.
Yeah.
So we are born into these families where we start to create belief patterns about ourselves, whether or not we're acceptable, whether or not we're lovable, and where we fit into the world, all those kind of things. And then usually government and family, or religion gets involved, religion. And that is also where we have to look to someone else for our value, for our identity. Are we okay? Is God going to punish us? Yep. And you find the basis of all of our fears is rejection. We're terrified of rejection.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I just had this conversation with Adam on the way here about my fear of rejection. That's funny.
Yeah, well, it's everyone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, even death is a sort of rejection,
yep.
right? It's like, oh my gosh, you're not there anymore. And so, so we have this basic fear that we're not good enough and that we have to somehow earn our worth.
Yeah.
And what I saw was that everyone's worth is the same. Everyone's worth is identical. But based upon how much of your worth you accept, that determines your output, your behavior.
So when you see like terrible people in the world, that treat people poorly,
right.
that whatever, so that their worth in the big scheme of things from what you saw was all the same as everyone else, they were just expressing it in a different way because they were only accepting a certain portion of that worth.
Exactly.
Yep.
So it was kind of the opposite of what you're told here, is that, oh, you have to gain your worth, right? You have to prove your value.
Yeah.
You have to earn your air that you breathe, right? You hear that too. Okay, so I saw that was backwards, and that you are born into what I call, and many people call, the herd mentality or the hamster wheel. And so in that circle of the herd is government, family, and religion. And they're highly intelligent people in there. I'm not saying these people are not intelligent. They are highly intelligent people. Right. But they're terrified of rejection, not being enough, making mistakes, being, having someone say something mean to them, and then they're like, oh my gosh, I have to prove myself, or, and they don't know how to communicate because everything's about being heard. They want to be understood. They want people to know who they are. And we've all been there, right? We all know what that feels like.
Absolutely.
But I also saw that true communication was asking questions. It was being curious in the other person, which I'll get to in a minute.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But in that herd mentality, it's meant to eventually fail. Right. You don't want to stay stuck in this fear of being punished or fear of rejection, fear of responsibility. Yeah. Many of them you'll hear say, oh, I don't want to know that. I don't want to be held responsible for that,
right.
Because they're afraid of being punished. So they even look to government to keep them safe, tell them what to eat, teach my kid at school. Everything is basically giving away your power or your right to learn and to develop and grow. Through your own curiosity, because your curiosity is shut down. You're not supposed to be too curious. Even I've met with people in this very office that were scientists, MIT. I've had lots of people in here, and it's interesting because I don't believe they're true scientists because they just regurgitate what they were taught in school, and they never question or experiment or try anything new. So how do they even know?
Right.
They're just basing that on somebody else's word.
Yep.
And so what I was shown was that the only way to get out of the herd mentality is to become curious. And fortunately or unfortunately, the main thing that causes curiosity is pain.
Makes sense.
Yes. And so a lot of us go through painful situations and we start asking better questions, things like this. There has to be more. I have to be a better person or it's not worth living. I have to have more, right? They want more. And that's what starts them on the journey of self-discovery. So what I see in this circle of herd mentality is basically yin and yang, right? We see the yin and yang, which in the herd mentality, that circle mentality, is black, white, right, wrong, good, bad, evil, righteous, all those things. And I feel like their mantra is me, you, me, you. It's all about blame, right? Because you don't want to get in trouble. You have to find someone to blame. Even if it's yourself, it's like whipping your back saying, look, God, don't be mad at me because I'm punishing myself.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
I think with that, like I've experienced that to where like I felt like a large majority of my life was based on shame and guilt.
Yes.
For just being a normal human being and going through life, trying to figure it out, development, and trying to develop as a human. And it's like, I spent a lot of time like being guilty and a lot of time being shameful and a lot of time doing, and those don't serve you at all.
No. Like if you look at that, it's the opposite of how humans learn. Right. Because we do learn through curiosity and trial and error. So what happens is when you start to become curious, I call this now self-discovery. And you start looking at your emotions, not as the issue, but as the red flag of something deeper that needs to be looked at. Where in society, in the herd mentality, they allow their emotions to control them because they don't know any other way. If they feel it, it must be true, right? But when we start to have self-discovery, we start to become a little bit more aware that something has to be causing those emotions. And it's a belief pattern. We have belief patterns that were created in the herd mentality that are painful beliefs. They're not accurate and truthful. And when those buttons are pushed, when that belief pattern is activated, we usually react, right? We don't respond, we react through pain. And if we realize that that's what's happening, that when we're having an emotion, it's just the subconscious or the ego's way of saying, look, there's a belief pattern here that needs to be looked at. It either needs to be changed or tweaked a little bit. And so at that point, if we're curious enough, we'll start writing about that, because the brain absolutely has to have not only thinking, but it has to have writing involved, because our brain will tend to exaggerate things, make it bigger than what it is, too hard, too much.
Well, it's like the majority of our suffering, right, comes from our own internal dialogue. It's like, like I know even with my own anxiety or whatever the case may be, or like, a fight with my wife or whatever, it's like you play out these conversations in your head that actually never took place. You know what I mean? It's like you created that whole narrative and it didn't come to fruition,
Which is fine to do if you are using that and saying, oh, I'm hearing what beliefs are really down there. So I'm having this imaginary conversation with you based upon the way that I think that you see me.
Yep.
Right?
Fascinating.
Right. So then if you start writing about that and start looking at that, then you'll start to realize that you have a belief pattern that's probably not accurate. You're either expecting your spouse to make you feel whole, complete, understood, those kind of things. Well, that's basically it. Usually that's what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure. So how do you like assimilate, if you will, back into like a culture of people or a society of people that, for the large part, I would say, are part of that wheel that you were talking about, where it's like they're not self-actualized and they're kind of like living, being told all the time like what they're supposed to be doing. Like how do you like be a part of that world and function and be, because I know for the reason I'm asking is because like when I got off all my drugs and stuff and I started going down this journey of self-discovery and figuring my shit out, if you will. I had to, I guess I'll call it flow. I felt like I was untouchable. I felt like nothing could go wrong. Like, because, like, for example, when I would hike, I usually would have either my gun or my knife or something with me just because I don't want to get attacked by a mountain lion, you know? But during that time, I stopped carrying any of that stuff.
Right.
And it wasn't because I didn't feel I was being naive at all. It was like I was so in tune vibrationally, like with what was going on around me, that there was nothing that could or would harm me ever.
Right.
And it was hard to explain that, like articulate what I was feeling. But it's like, it's almost like a drug. I feel like I've spent the last like 7 years chasing that same feeling because I want to feel it again. But then you get stuck in the hustle and bustle of life, you know, and kids and marriage and this and then job and career and blah, blah, blah. And you kind of lose sight of that for a second. So that's been my journey of finding my way back, you know? But that, I guess that, so that's why I was asking that question. Like, it was hard for me to assimilate or have a conversation with people that don't really understand what I'm talking about.
Well, what you were feeling was knowing,
right?
The knowingness, right? You were in that flow of knowingness, and it's pure knowledge, right? But the way that you can assimilate in with other people is because you have compassion. And you have curiosity because you're interested in what they're going to say next. What are they going to do next?
Right.
Like, and you learn from that because we know that each one of us, even though we're working on this other greater piece of what I call the I am that I am, you still learn that you have these pieces of the herd mentality that are still inside of you. So you can't just turn your back to those things and walk away. You want to actually immerse yourself in it so that you become aware of belief patterns that might be similar or that are activated by watching someone else go through something or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, I struggled with the compassion piece, I think, because maybe because of judgment, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I
think deep down, if I'm going to be honest with myself, I think I really genuinely care about people. And so I want to help people. It's like, if I know something that's helping me to feel better and like to understand, have a sense of understanding and as you called it, a knowing, I want to share that. And when you try and share that with people that want to stay, it's almost like they want to stay stuck. They want to stay like in a state of like chaos. I guess extremely frustrating, you know, because it's like, I'm trying to help you. I love you. I want to help you. And so when they didn't, then obviously the judgment comes up like, oh, you don't want my help, whatever. And then I would turn my back. And it's like, I know that that's a pattern for me. So it's like, I need to work on that. But yeah, I definitely struggle with the compassion piece for sure.
Well, that's because you're still in the religious mindset because that's called proselyting. So,
wow, mind blown.
So when you're still in the belief pattern that pain is bad, that suffering is bad, and that you should avoid it at all costs, then you try to save other people, right? And instead, like what you're doing with your podcast, you're putting the information out there, and the people who are curious that are on the same wavelength as you will find you, right? They're going to find you, but you can't go giving everyone this information. It's not for everyone. Right? Fascinating.
No, so, it's crazy because I just did a podcast with a guy that I never thought would ever listen to my podcast. It was a guy I grew up with. It was his dad. And I hadn't seen him in like 20 years. And he randomly just reached out to me and said, hey, man, I really want to share my story with you and do a podcast with you.
Nice.
I've been listening to your podcast. It's really helping me.
Aww.
I never, ever, ever in a million years would have ever expected that phone call. So you're absolutely right. Like, I really think that once you detach yourself from it, I guess, is the best part, because it's like, you don't know whose awareness this is going to come into, and it might be at the right exact time, you know?
And that's the truth. And that's the knowing.
Yeah.
Because it takes the guesswork out. It's like with what I do, I have never advertised a day in my life, yet there were times where I've, seen over 40, 50 people a week, which is a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just word of mouth, because I feel like it's special. I feel like knowledge and wisdom, they're special things in the world today. They're kind of taken for granted.
Yeah.
And I feel like those that are seeking that will find it, you know? And so when you're going into the self-discovery and you're willing to I hate even using the word brave because it sounds ridiculous, but when you're brave enough to go in and explore the fears that are controlling you, all of a sudden it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And you have a level of freedom. You know this, right?
Absolutely.
When you get in there, you go, oh, well, this isn't that big of a deal, but my imagination and those belief patterns from the herd mentality really had me convinced that there was a monster in my closet.
Absolutely.
So I think that's that piece of that self-discovery, is understanding how to have compassion for other people, because they literally don't know, and they might not ever do that in this lifetime. That's the beauty I feel of believing and seeing other lifetimes with people, is that they have the opportunity to keep doing it as many times as they want to, because nobody's doing it to them. Yeah. They can do it as much as they want to until they feel like they really do accept who they are and understand what that means, what that is. That's
crazy. So do you have any fear of death because of that?
No.
Like none?
No, but I don't want to leave my family.
Right.
I don't want to, that's that piece of me still that doesn't want to be the thing that causes them pain.
Right.
Now, I know it might sound a little into myself, but I think they'd miss me.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
So.
That's a crazy piece of that whole world, is that letting go of, I guess, the ego, right? Of like, that's holding us here in the physical realm, where it's like.
See, I see it differently. I don't want to let go of the ego. The ego is my best friend,
right,
because the ego is only telling me the truth about what the lie is, right? The ego's telling me, look, you have this belief pattern that's really screwed up. Fix it.
Yeah.
Don't be a dumbass. Like,
so how so? Like, can you give me an example of how the ego would talk to you and say, hey, that's not a good belief pattern for you?
Let's say somebody, I'm just going to use a really benign example. So let's say somebody says, I want to start drinking 8 glasses of water a day.
Yep.
Right? Sounds like a great goal.
Yeah.
And they go to implement it and they hear the ego say, really? How many times have you tried to do this and you fail every stinking time? Like, you are kidding yourself. You are not going to succeed at this.
Yeah.
Okay. So most people would think the ego's being mean to them and saying, oh, you're a failure. You can't do anything you put your mind to, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the ego's telling you the truth, because the way you've been doing it in the past has never worked.
Wow.
So you're going to have to change something for this to actually pan out, for you to be able to make this change in your life. So by following the ego's words, you go in there and you go, okay, well, it's a good goal to drink 8 glasses of water a day. That's a good goal. It doesn't need to change. But the way that I've been implementing that needs to go. It needs to change. So at that point, this is what I call doing the yin work, the inside planning or thinking is kind of like the lesson plan, right, for the teacher. It's when you go in and you go, okay, well, I'm going to buy 8 cups, different colors, put them in the fridge. And then every hour, I'll get a different cup and I'll know that I've done it. And that might work for a while. And then it doesn't work again. And the ego's like, see, dumbass, you're failing again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I need to tweak it again. Maybe I should set my alarm, and let me know. So it's not that we listen to it and go, oh, I'm failing. We look at it and go, no, I could do better.
Yeah.
And not in a shameful, guilt-ridden way. It's like, no, how good can I get at this?
Yeah.
Like, I want to succeed at this, and I want to do whatever it takes to be good at life.
That makes perfect sense to me. Like, well, as you're saying, I'm like, wow, it's fascinating, because like the whole like getting off pain pills and all that other stuff, that took me 9 times, I think. I tried
absolutely
unsuccessfully to like quit all my drugs, and then I knew like at any moment it's like I can just take one pill and feel quote unquote normal again.
Yeah.
And so I would. But then I started asking myself, when the final straw, I went through a divorce and this and that. So I started doing a lot of self-discovery, and I started realizing that set and setting are super important to what you're trying to achieve in your life. And the people that I had in my life during that time that I was trying unsuccessfully to get off of all this stuff weren't the most supportive, and probably not of the highest mindset, I guess. Well, it was more
not on the same page.
Not on the same page, yeah. Like more of a victim type mentality. And once I started changing my scenery a little bit and who I associated with and this and that, it made that process a little bit more bearable, if you will. Yeah. Interesting.
Absolutely. And I think that what you said was so important. I don't think that you failed 9 times. I think that the way that the brain works is by succeeding at something for a little while and then reverting back and figuring out exactly why you wanted to change that in the first place. You get more information. Yeah. I think, well, I've worked a lot with drug addicts and people that were addicted. I always tell them, the drug is not the issue.
Yeah.
It's not. And, I've never seen alcohol jump into someone's mouth. I've never seen it happen. I don't know. I've never seen a heroin needle like fly into somebody randomly on the street, right? It's a choice that we make.
Yep.
And I think that getting to know the reasons why we believe that whatever pain we were feeling was so unbearable, even physical pain, I think it's having an understanding and compassion for ourselves. And as we start to love ourselves more, we become clean, right? We stop that habit. Yeah. But then if we don't get real deep, which we won't, you won't get real deep in the beginning, and you'll revert, you'll relapse. You have to relapse so that you can remember exactly why you were wanting to make that change in the first place. And you gather more information, more wisdom, right?
Yeah, because most people do relapse.
They're going to.
Yeah, for sure.
When I hear, I've had a lot of dealings with addicts, and it's interesting when I've been in rehabs or listened to their therapist or whatever. It's like, oh, you shouldn't relapse, and the parents are crying, the family members are all upset. And it's like, wait, this is a good thing.
Yeah.
Might they die? Yeah, absolutely. But they could also get hit by a freaking bus. So let's get over it and let's look at this.
Right.
Sorry, that might sound cold. But it's true. Like you have to look at this and go, I have faith in you. I believe in you. And I know you're going to go forwards and backwards with this. So relax and do the best you can.
Yeah, I was beating myself up about it. Like for the 9 times, it's like every time was like failure, you're a failure, like whatever. And then you feel that guilt and the shame, like, damn it, I failed again. It's like, I need to figure this out,
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like trying to find the reason as to like, why do I want to be off all this shit in the first place? It's like, well, because I want to be more present. I don't want to feel the need to have a crutch to like get me through life. It's like, I need to figure this out. And where is this pain coming from? Obviously, back surgeries and whatnot, but like the anxiety piece of it was like, well, where's that? Anxiety I don't think it's something we're born with.
No.
I think it's something you develop over time through whatever traumatic experiences or whatever it may be. And, I wanted to get to the bottom of that. And I don't think I'm there yet. I'm definitely not there, because I still struggle with anxiety. It's still a thing for me, so I'm in the process of getting to that place where like, I'm good. I'm comfortable in my own skin. I love myself enough to like be self-aware enough to accept my shortcomings or my lapses in judgment or whatever the case may be.
Opportunity, right? It's just opportunity. But the thing, what I believe about anxiety is it's just, again, a signal to really dig deeper.
Right.
That's all it is. I don't necessarily always believe it's a physiological problem. Yes, your vagus nerve could be impaired in some way and it will cause heart palpitations. It will cause anxiety, right? That's a physiological reason. But most doctors don't even look at that.
Yeah. So I try to explain that to people. Like when I tell them like I struggle with anxiety, they're thinking like, oh, it's like I'm about to take a test and I have test anxiety. It's like, no. This is like a physical symptom of like even while I sat here to sit down with you, to talk with you, my palms start sweating and I start getting a little nervous, and it's like, but I'm aware enough to know, okay, like my palms are sweating. What's going on? Like I'm good. Like I'm in good company. Everything's cool. So there's self-talk going on where it's like, I'm totally good. We're good. But it's a daily thing,
Right.
And I think that a lot of people don't understand what anxiety really is, because that I've heard that the
the vagus nerve.
Yeah, I've heard that before. I've never done any work with it, but maybe I should.
Yeah, heck yeah. But again, I love what you were doing because you're talking yourself through it. You're giving yourself evidence of why the anxiety isn't going to control you.
Yeah.
Right? You're giving evidence. You have to find evidence of what is right with you because your brain is constantly scanning for what's wrong with you. Right?
Definitely.
Not to punish you or to make you feel crappy about yourself, but to say, look, this is what you can look at and alter, fix, whatever, it's opportunity.
Yeah.
If we stop looking at ourselves or life as victim, that victim mentality, everything's against us, and we go, well, I don't know. Because in my life, I've had a lot of really hard things. And every time it felt like they were going to take me down, but I've used them. And I become stronger and happier. And I think the word that you were searching for earlier is freedom.
Oh, yeah.
You wanted freedom.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing is in the herd mentality, it is bondage. There's so much bondage.
Oh, yeah. I think what the catalyst for me, when you talk about freedom, it just brought something up for me. I was looking at a trip that I wanted to take to Peru, and I wanted to do an ayahuasca ceremony. And so I was looking at some of the criteria and, the diet they want you to adhere to before you go and this and that. one of the things that it said was that you cannot be on any psychotropic drugs or anything like that before you come down. And I was like, wow, like here's something that I want to do, but I'm being prevented from doing that because of the drugs that I'm taking. And I didn't want that bondage anymore.
Right.
And I mean, to some people that may sound silly, but to me it was very real.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be able to have the freedom to do and go and come as I please and not have anything holding me back.
Yeah.
So that really was the catalyst for me. So I mean, that and like going through the divorce and wanting to be more present for my son obviously was a big piece of that. But that was the big like light bulb that went off. Like, oh wow, I'm like kind of handicapped by this.
Yes.
And I don't like that.
It's that desire, that curiosity of what that ayahuasca could have done for you. Right. It's like, that might be bigger than this.
Yep.
Than the pain pills. So yeah, I mean, if we really just pay attention, I believe that things just show up for us. I really do. I believe it's timing. I believe in synchronicity.
Oh yeah.
I just believe things show up for us as the next step to get us to where we need to be, which is accepting more and more of our greatness, our individuality.
Right. Do you think, like being that you like kind of walked away from like organized religion and stuff like that, and your family was a part of it, was there like, did your family members like kind of like excommunicate you, if you will, because you weren't part of it?
Yeah, there were a couple people.
How did you deal with that?
You just have to. At first, it hurt.
Yeah, for sure.
It was a new area for me, even though I knew it was inevitable. It hurt, and I reeled from that for quite a while. I cried, screamed, hollered, did the whole thing. Yeah. And then I was like, well, screw that. I'm done with that one. Yeah. And then you start to get in there and you get really curious about, well, what can I do with this? Obviously, you don't see me the same way as you did before, and that's your prerogative, and I think that's that cool piece that I really got to envelop with myself was, I kind of call it like, there's a bowl of watermelon on the table, and some people might want to eat that, and some people may not want it. Right. But it doesn't change the chemistry and the value of that watermelon, right? It's still there. It's still just as beautiful as it was before. And so the value of that watermelon didn't go up or down based upon whether or not somebody wanted it. Its structure stayed the same. Right. Does that make sense? And if we start seeing ourselves that way, which is what I started doing, I started that deeper trek of, wait a minute, I am still valuable regardless of whether or not you want to be in my life. Right. And that allowed me to have more compassion for them. But it took time. For sure. I mean, how do you deal with, like you said, when you went to that other side, you saw that everybody, their worth was the same. Mm-hmm. But how do you deal with people hurting you? Like where it's almost like it seems like it's intentional. Their intentions are bad. And how do you deal with that? Like, and not harbor like resentment or hatred or anger or any of these emotions that are not very serving? Well, I think you have to write about it, talk about it, get in there and think about it. It's like, are they really reacting to me because of me? Probably not. Most people are behaving poorly because they are afraid. And so when you start recognizing that people lash out or do things to you because of their own fears, their own brainwashing, if you will, right. In some situations, they're not trying to hurt you. They really believe they're trying to save you most of the time, right? They really do. Just like what you were saying when you first got off the pain pills, you wanted to convince everybody, right? Yeah. Well, they're kind of doing the same thing. And if you have compassion for that and you kind of look at it as an endearing thing, it helps. Totally. It helps a lot. But everybody's going through something, and it's all based on fear of rejection. Would you be okay with like somebody, like if somebody wasn't adding value to your life, if you will, like was like detrimental to your life and your well-being, would you be okay just getting that person or those people out of your life and saying, I love you, but I'm going to love you like from a distance. Like I can't. They get themselves out of my life. I have never had to cut one person out of my life. Interesting. I've never. They seem to do it on their own. Yeah. And I've found that fascinating. I know there's a lot of people in what I call the New Age religion that literally believe that if somebody is harming you in some way, cut them out of your life. And I believe it should be just the opposite. If someone is causing you pain, for hell's sake, examine it, fix it, figure it out, change you so that you can be around people that don't like you or whatever, and they don't affect you anymore. Does that mean I want to hang out with you? Maybe not, but you're not going to take away my value or my freedom to be able to be wherever I want to be.
That's fascinating, because especially in the family dynamic, right? Like you talked about family, religion, and government. With family, it's tough because you have people in your family that, there's mental illness, there's things that go on, whether they be sociopathic or whatever the case may be. And it's like, that's not healthy for me. So like, I'm just going to kind of stay away. But with that, for me anyway, came a lot of like shame and guilt. Yeah. Like, oh, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? And you just got to trust your intuition and trust your judgment,
And it may just be you need a break for a minute to just get your bearings, right? Just to figure it out and to find the truth behind the whole situation. I mean, I think all of us have people in our life that don't agree with us, that don't care to even know what we think or believe, and they just want to pass judgments on us and assume they know who we are or what we are. And I think, we've all been through that situation of fighting or crying or trying to get them to understand us, and it doesn't work, does it? It never has, it never will. And I think eventually we get to the point where we just go, well, what the crap am I doing? Stop doing that. And the funny thing is usually that gives them an opportunity to maybe question why they're seeing you that way. And that's what's usually happened in my life is a lot of the people who judge me, either I just don't care or they stop doing it.
Right.
So
interesting. What do you, knowing that the knowledge that you have or the knowing that you have, what would you say the meaning of life is? What's the purpose of life?
I feel like the purpose of life is to literally know what to do with the greatness that you have. Like how to express that, how to be, and how to recognize your connectedness to all things.
How would you do that though? Like if for example, for me, I think podcasting is my passion. I know it's my passion because it doesn't feel like work. It's like, I love what I'm doing. Yeah. The connections I'm making, the people I'm meeting, it's fascinating. Like meeting you, I'm blown away right now. So I'm like, this is amazing. You know what I mean? Like this podcast is awesome. And I'm like, this is cool. It never would have happened had I not gone down this journey. And so for people that are looking for a way to like find their passion, find what they're looking for, what they're meant to do, could you offer like some kind of advice?
Absolutely. I believe that your podcasts are just an expression of what you already know about yourself.
Right.
And so I see a lot of people out there trying to find their passion, right? Yeah. Well, a passion should just be an expression, an easy flowing expression of what you already know and what you're already doing and being. Right. And that's the work that people don't want to do. They don't want to get deep within themselves and figure themselves out. And the more that you get rid of what you're not, the more you're left with what you are and what's available to you. And you find new hobbies, you find, interests, and that becomes your passion.
Yeah.
But passion should be an expression. It shouldn't give you identity.
Right. Interesting.
It should just be something that you are happy to share with other people.
Yeah, because I think people get stuck, right, in the whole idea of, you find something that's going to pay the bills, basically. Yeah. It's like, there is real life where it's like you have a mortgage to pay and utilities and this and that, and trying to find something that you're just not working for a paycheck. It's like you give so much of yourself and your time usually to a job that you don't even care about. Like you're not passionate about it. It doesn't serve you at all. And you leave there feeling extremely drained and just kind of like dead inside, And so then what do you do with the rest of your time? You're usually kind of it's like a downward spiral. It feels like, for a lot of people in my life, I've witnessed that, myself included. I was going down that road of climbing the corporate ladder and whatever. And it's like, this sucks. Like I don't want to be here. And I had a buddy actually that I worked with, and we call it going down the rabbit hole, if you will. So we would have these discussions about the deeper meanings of life and this and that. And we both knew that like, this is not where we're meant to be.
Right.
Not at all. This is not me. This isn't where I want to be. Like I was striving. Yeah. I wasn't striving. I was thriving in my position, and was doing very well, but it wasn't what I was meant to do. It wasn't calling me at all. Right. And so doors were opening and closing like intentionally, I think, like, oh, this is okay. Oh, it's kind of leading me in the direction where I'm going now. And so, I think that people are looking for their passion. A lot of people are, but that's a good point though, it's not looking for your passion. It's like just getting rid of the things that you are not and then
Well,
just
you
an
just
expression.
said it. You
Right.
said it kind of found you.
Right.
And that's what my point is the more that you start to get to know you,
Right.
you will be aware of those doors opening. It's not that they might not have been there before, but you become more curious about what's available, what's out there.
How do people
Right.
do that though? How do people get to know who they are?
By doing the work. I call it the work. It's the practice of being able to literally hear your emotions, feel your emotions, and go down and find that limiting belief pattern, and then do the work of changing it. And that's where the magic happens. I call this, it's the light wave or the serpent, right? The movement of the serpent. And it's the up and down movement of knowledge and wisdom, or knowing and doing. This is a practice. And when you start doing this behavior, you start to figure out who you are, and you let go of the things that aren't you anymore. So maybe when you first started the other job, there were things there for you to learn about yourself that were perfect, but maybe it ran its course, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
now because you're more aware and open and curious about something, you stumbled upon something different, a different idea or whatever. I think that's more organic.
Yeah.
I think the problem is in today's society, people are afraid of things being organic. They want to rush to be successful. They want to prove who they are. They want their job to be their identity, what they drive to be their identity.
Right.
Even what they eat to be their identity.
Well, look how we meet people, right? The first thing you usually meet someone is, oh, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like some people ask me that now, like, what do you do for a living? As little as possible, like I just want to try and like derail that conversation, because I don't want to go down that road. Like, who cares what I do for a living? Let's talk about who I am, you know, like, I don't know.
But that's cool, because then you just say, you know what, it's a cool story, like what you do.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but that's kind of what I've witnessed in life, watching other people, watching myself. I've done a lot of different jobs, but I'll tell you, not one of the jobs that I've ever experienced in my life have been a mistake. Yeah. I, in this room, use everything that I've ever learned in my life. Yeah. I get people from all walks of life, and like I have this great. My dad is one of the most intelligent people I know, and he teaches me things. Right? He talked to me one day about making an axe head and all this stuff, and I'm like, cool. And dear heavens, like the next week or two, I get somebody in here that's into like wood stuff and all that, and I'm like, he was like, you know about axes? I'm like, yeah,
totally.
You know,
right.
So if you're a curious soul, you're not afraid to use every job, every experience, every conversation to become smarter, wiser, right?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
And then whatever it is you find yourself doing, you're just all the better for it.
Right.
I had a kid that was having a hard time. He's in a sales job, you know, telemarketing, you know, getting phone calls. And he wanted to quit because he just felt like it wasn't his passion. Yeah. And I was like, dude, don't quit. Like, get in there and look at it as serving others. When these people are calling you, they're hurting, they're scared, they're whatever, right? And be there for them, have compassion. You know, and he's one of the top people in his company now, not because he's like trying to be number one. It's because that was the byproduct of caring about people.
For sure.
And I think we miss that in life now. Absolutely. It's all about our identity.
That's where I was kind of struggling with corporate, was that I felt like I cared a lot, you know, like for the people I was selling to and the people that I was dealing with, and the people around me, like maybe the bigger people above me even, that wasn't their agenda. It was like, you're just a number and you're just kind of filling a role. Yeah. I just felt so disconnected from that, where I was like, wow, that's not who I am and what I'm about. And so I can't jive with any of you. Yeah. Like, so I'm just here going to a building to like pay the bills, but you're absolutely right. What I learned during that time, I'm 100% using to this day.
See, there you go. It's never a mistake.
Yeah.
And it lets you know when it's run its course.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Everything lets you know. It's like, okay, we're good. Let's move on.
Yeah. So I had an opportunity to go back actually recently, and generous offer and all that other good stuff. And nope. Not doing it, you know, because it's not that I think I'm better than it or above it. It's just like you said, it's run its course. I've done my time there, and that's good. I've learned what I needed to learn, and now I'm moving on. You know,
I love it. Yeah,
for sure. I want to get into the medium stuff.
Cool.
Because like I said, it's foreign to me. I don't know anything about it. So maybe I have some guides or people that are in my past that are kind of guiding me down the way that I'm going, if you will. And if you could tap into some of that, I'd be fascinated by it.
Yeah, everyone has guides, people on the other side, whatever you want to call it, dimensions, whatever, that love us and watch over us. I don't think anyone's ever lonely. I think that's a choice because there's always people around reminding us of who we are and what we are.
Right.
And even the painful ones, are there to like really serve us, and they love us, and they're there to encourage us, and they're not far, So she loves you,
right.
and she's there for you, and she's not going anywhere.
Right.
I don't want to get too personal, so
you can. This podcast, it's free. It's there's no censorship on this.
Yeah.
At all, and I'm an open book. So
yeah, you've actually lost quite a few people, though. Relative wise, I feel like you have so many people that are like around you.
Yeah, but like none of them like deceased.
Close, not close.
Yeah. So like, as far as deceased family members, it'd only be like a couple. Yeah.
Well, remember though, they're connected. You're connected to many, many people over there. So even if you don't know someone in this life, right. They still love and watch over you.
Right.
It was interesting. One time many times this has happened, but people will come back. I had a guy that showed up from World War I, and he's like showing me this outfit, and he's like really like decked out, right? And so I tell the family, I'm like, there's this picture, like, I don't know, but he's telling me you have this picture. They're like, no, we've been through all the albums. We don't have this picture. Well, they found the picture of him, right? So it didn't matter that they didn't know him. He knew them.
Yeah.
So just always, everybody needs to remember that. In the world, everybody needs to know they're loved forever and ever.
Right.
Was this a friend? How are you connected to her?
My grandma.
Your grandma.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the relative part. Is there another woman that's
a friend that I've lost? Mm-hmm. She was a friend for a time, but then like we kind of, after my divorce, like that's the only person I can think of that I've lost.
Like
a
girl.
Friend. She was never a girlfriend,
but
no.
like
She was a friend for sure.
Okay, I've got her here too, which I don't know why.
Interesting.
So the relative, the grandmother, did she help raise you in some way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, she's so super cute and strong, like tough as heck.
Yeah.
And so she just really wants you to know that you are never a burden, ever, and that you never bothered her. Did you have issues with that? Did you?
No, I think, yeah, you grow up thinking like she was always there,
Mm-hmm.
big time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's like a, sorry.
No.
There's a part that feels like, yeah, you're a burden, like you,
yeah.
She was my mom for sure.
Yeah. No, she's like you got to get past that piece of knowing that she did everything, not even just willingly, but because she couldn't help herself.
Right.
Like she just adores you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it was never like a struggle or, oh, I have to do this. It's like, oh my God, I get to do this.
Right.
Like that's how she saw you. So she wants you like to be able to put all that other stuff away, and she is taking responsibility. So she's like, grandmas are like this, just so you know. I run into this a lot, but she's like, yeah, this is like a good part of me and him right now. Like this is me. Like so so she knows, right? Okay, I don't even know why I'm seeing this, but I'm seeing something with chickens. I don't know what a chicken has to do with anything. It's like food. I don't know, but I'm seeing like chicken.
I don't know.
I don't know either. I just throw out what I see.
Yeah, for sure.
So it might be something that comes to you later.
Yeah.
I call it psychic amnesia. Yeah. So just like, don't know. I've learned in the past not to hold anything back. So if I'm seeing it, I'm going to throw it out for you.
Sure.
So, and she kind of went above and beyond even on holidays or something for you. Like she wanted like your holidays to be uber duper special. Like, is this right?
Yeah.
Like she didn't scrimp on anything for you.
No.
Like you were like so loved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. So when we we moved to Texas for 4 years or something. And it was brutal, you know, because my grandma was in California and I was in Texas. And it was, you know, my stepdad's family was out there and they were cool, but they didn't treat us like family. Right. You know, it was like we were the stepkids. And she always made it a point to like send us a huge package for every holiday. So it was like we would wait. We lived in a 23-foot travel trailer, and we would wait on the steps to get that package from Meme, you know?
Yeah.
And even when I went to the service, you know, I'd be in England and I would be sitting there on post, and there you get relieved to go get your mail or whatever, and I would have a huge package for my grandma, you know. So I'd be sitting at the gate shack or whatever, opening this big Easter basket. You know, I'm this big buff guy that works out carrying a gun. You opening his Easter basket from his grandma. Yeah.
And sobbing all the way through it.
Right.
Of course.
You know, because, you know, like you said, she going above and beyond. I think, I don't know if I was talking to Adam about it or somebody, that I never understood how she did it. It's like, no, being like a dad now, being like, she didn't have like a great paying job or whatever. It was just, she always made it happen, you know. Christmas at her house was phenomenal. And I don't remember the gifts. It wasn't about the gifts. It was about the feeling. And I actually went by her house. I couldn't let it go, you know. And the house it's the house I grew up in. It's where all my memories were. So I went by there and I saw the guy who owns it, you know. So I stopped and he was like, come in, you know, come on inside. And I was really glad I did. You know, he redid the house and stuff like that. But because I grew up in it, I still knew what it was, you know. And it was a little bit of closure, you know. But it's definitely a piece of me that's still holding on.
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing.
Right.
It's not a bad thing. And she doesn't think that you're weak for that either. I can tell you that right now. She wants you to know you're one of the strongest people that she knows. You always were. Yeah.
Interesting. Damn it, Adam. I told you I was going to cry.
That's okay. That's good. Those are love tears.
For sure. A lot of love. And it's kind of weird with my grandma especially. There was a lot of regret that like she died alone. You know, she was in a skilled nurse facility, and I was going to school, so I would stop and I would feed her. She had a stroke, and so I would feed her and we'd try to talk, but it was at the point where she really wasn't making sense. And I hated like seeing her like that, because like I said, she was like my mom, you know. And it was tough. And I got the call that she passed away, and I didn't admit it then, but I can admit it now that I was guilty that she was alone, because she never left me alone. You know, I was always taken care of, you know, no matter what, whether it be financial or emotional, whatever, she was always there. And yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. But she's showing me that every time that you left, it wasn't a casual goodbye.
Right.
So you did say goodbye.
Right.
So that's how she sees it. She's like, you were never casual and, oh, see you later. You were always very tender with her.
Right.
To her, you had many goodbyes, just so you know.
Good.
So, yeah.
Interesting. It's fascinating stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's helpful.
It really is. It really is, because there's a lot of unknowns, you know, and I actually was talking to my cousin about this the other day, because we're the most broken up about it.
Right.
The rest of my family is cool and all, but I love them, but they didn't have the relationship with my grandma that I did, not even close.
Right.
And so she left, you know, all of her stuff, whatever, which I don't give a shit about. I was in her will. It was my mom, my aunt, and me.
Right.
And it's cool, you know, that, you know, she cared enough to put me there. I didn't know that I was in the will or what my place in that will was. But my cousin Danielle, we're like, damn, we don't have like a grave to go to, you know?
Yeah.
She was cremated. I said, I really need like a grave, you know, I needed to like do something, you know? So I was like, maybe I'll plant a tree, you know,
Nice.
and put her ashes like in the bottom of the tree and plant it with that. Just give me a spot, you know,
Yeah.
to go and talk, you know. I think that was the hardest part. Was you hit some speed bumps every once in a while. It's like, damn, I want to call her right now.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
That was the toughest, you know, for sure.
That is the worst part, is we know they're in a better place, right? We know that. It's just, where are we?
Yeah, for sure.
We're like, what the hell?
For sure.
This is not what I wanted.
Yeah.
But the beautiful part, I think, of death is the remembering the cool things and having them, the things we took for granted, become very tender and sweet to us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I've said this a million times, the very things that bothered me about my mom now are the very things that I miss. Her standing right behind me when I'm making food. Like she would stare. Now I'm like, dang, I'd give anything for her to be right behind me. And sometimes she is still, but
right.
but it's always the funny little
how do you
things.
process death now that you have this understanding? Or this ability?
You know, it's interesting. When Mom was passing, she passed here at the house. She was in hospice here.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, doing what I do, I thought that I was prepared.
Yeah.
And I'd written about it. I'd talked about it. Like I thought that when she actually passed, I would be okay.
Yeah. And
I was. When she actually took her last breath, we cried, we held her. I crawled in bed with her for hours. I laid there with her and talked to her. And, but it wasn't until they put her on the gurney and the man looked at me and he said, I'm going to cover your mom's face now, and then I'm going to zip up the bag. And I said, okay. And he did. And the most horrific howl came out of my body. That I was not aware that I could make that noise. Yeah. And I sobbed for days. I couldn't breathe. Yeah. And what I know now is that I love that part of me, because it really is a part of me that loves, and I love deeply. Do I know that I'll feel better? Of course, things heal with time. Right. But I'm never going to downplay or look at someone that goes through that kind of pain when they lose a loved one, even an animal. Yeah. You know, they're very dear to us, and it's okay to mourn them. Yeah. It's okay. It's okay to hurt, because it's temporary. That deep hurt, there's always a piece of it, but life goes on. Right. And they want us to go on. They want us to live, and they want us to remember them and to develop and grow from their experiences. But they don't want us to stay in a incapacitated state.
So how would you tell someone, like, or encourage someone to process some of those emotions? Because I know with my grandma, like, there was a lot of like tough times, you know, to be like grieving. There was some of it was relief that she wasn't in pain anymore and wasn't like going through the stuff. And a lot of it, you know, going through the will and doing everything else. So there was a business side of it that I didn't have time to like really like feel bad or like, you know, whatever. So it feels like just now, I mean, she's been gone for 3 years and change. And it's like, I'm just now starting to process some of it, you know?
I think that was perfect.
Yeah.
I think whatever a person goes through is perfect for them. I know I've read all the stuff, you know, all the stages of grieving and all that, but I think everyone's stages are personal. And I don't think everyone goes through all the stages. And I don't think it's necessary. I think as long as you find the answers you are looking for and closure with that person of what you learned from them, what they learned from you, you know, keep it organic and real. And I think that's perfect. Yeah. I don't think we should try to make it something.
Interesting.
Whatever is.
Yeah, for sure. What do you say, what are your goals? What do you want to like, what are you trying to accomplish while you're here in this physical realm? Like right now?
You know, I love what I'm doing. I love everything about my life. I love that I'm becoming more and more independent and strong. I love the freedom that I'm gaining through all the heartache and weird opportunities that show up for me that I'm not even expecting, right? Yeah. I try to use those to be freer. If I decide to do more of this in the public, then it'll just be an adventure that'll be fun. I may and I may not. I don't know.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Makes
Like,
perfect sense.
I love whatever I wake up that day and I do.
That's awesome.
I didn't used to be that way, but I've learned that everything, when I go to bed at night, I go back through my day and I go, what did I love? Like, what in the heck did I learn today? And what could I do better tomorrow? And I don't know that I could do any better than that.
It's pretty awesome.
You know, I think everything is here to serve me.
Yeah, totally. For sure. No, it's a great way of looking at things, you know, to be like, it's a way, I guess, in a way it's self-love, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I dig that.
I think I'm worth it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions that I ask everyone that comes on the podcast. First one being, if you had like one book or one person that inspired you the most through your life, what would that book be, or who would that person be, and why? It
would be my grandma Burwell, hands down.
Yeah. Was that the scientific?
Yeah, she had issues, of course, like everyone else, but she had a heart of gold too. She loved me and taught me things about myself that I don't think I could have heard from anybody else but her.
Wow.
You know?
That's pretty cool. What about a book? Do you have a book that like inspired you the most, or that like, if you could share it with somebody, you would share? That's on like kind of a journey.
You know, I have too many of those. I think one of them that happened for me was Carolyn Mace.
I haven't heard of that one.
It's an author, and I read one of her books, I think was called Anatomy of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to it when I was driving one day, and it was when I was kind of running from this work. Right. It's like, I didn't want to do it, right? I'm like, I'm not good enough to do it. Like, you guys are crazy over there.
Right.
And I was running from it. And I remember there was a piece where she was reading her book, and she said, stop it right now. And I literally had to pull my Suburban over. Like, I pulled over and I just sat there shaking. I was like, oh my God, I'm running.
Yeah.
Like, I have to pull my crap together and do this.
Yeah.
Like, I get to do this. I don't have to, I get to.
Right.
And that changed me right there.
Is there ever any bad stuff that comes up with that? Like, you know, say like my grandma being in the room and then telling you like, oh, he's on the path of destruction, or whatever the case may be. Is there ever any warning signs?
No, but most of the time when people come through, they will give warnings, but it's more in the optimistic way of, look, here's what you're capable of.
Right.
You just don't know that yet. But I don't think in all the years I've done this, have I ever had somebody come in and go, you're messing up your life. I've never had that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And I've worked with gang members, a lot of gang members.
Wow.
And it's interesting because they know the only way out's death, right?
Yep.
And so their loved ones are like showing them different ways of being able to develop and grow out of that mentality, and that it's a horrible life. Yeah.
So the next question is, if you had one lesson that you've learned through your life that you could share with anybody, like the biggest lesson that you learned along your journey, what would that lesson be and why?
Well, like I said before, it's just everything is here to serve me. That's my biggest lesson. I don't think anything is here to cripple me or hurt me. I don't. I think everything is here to show me what I'm capable of.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What's the best way for people to connect with you? If people wanted to come and meet with you, or if you're open to that, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
They can message me, through Facebook.
Okay.
It's an easy one.
So how would they find you on Facebook?
It's just Becky Burwell, Burwell Johnson.
Okay.
And you can private message me there. That's cool. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a believer now. I mean, because I honestly, like, you come into things, especially with our programming, both growing up in the church type thing. Like, mm-hmm. I was, you're skeptical. You're like, I don't know. But I'm always open to anything. Like I said, I'll try anything twice.
That's awesome, though. I love that about you.
For sure. So I'm a gamer. Like, why not?
Well, that's the only way you know, right?
Yeah, for sure. But thank you so much for being willing to come on here and for doing that for me.
You are so welcome.
I know I'm going to be processing this for quite a while, for sure.
Well, I'm here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to actually have my cousin reach out to you. Sure. Because, I think she could use it. Is that something that you can do over the phone? Is it something that, okay. Yeah. All right, perfect. because she's like on the other side of the country. So
yeah, absolutely.
I'd love for her to meet you in
FaceTime
person.
all the time.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, FaceTime.
Yeah.
I forget about that.
I know,
It's
right? Me
great
too.
technology.
I've been doing a lot more appointments that way. I'm like,
Right.
this is so cool.
Yeah, super cool. Well, thank you again so much. And,
You're so
and I look
welcome.
forward to seeing you again.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to My Backstory. Stay motivated and stay connected off the show. Follow at my_backstory_ to be a part of the journey to recovery and to see where your story goes. Or visit us online at hereismybackstory.com.